So, I just got done talking to one of my friends from college. I haven't gotten to talk to her recently lately because just problems with, you know, the internet service out at the cabin. And she had some advice on how I record things. More specifically, she asked for more detail on a lot more things, which I thought, you know, it makes sense when you hear it from somebody else. It's like, oh yeah, maybe you guys can't read my mind or know exactly what's going on. Well, you know, I'm new at this. It's going to take practice. I'm open to suggestions as long as it's all positive feedback, you know, positive suggestions and not just blatant criticism, I suppose. But constructive feedback is always welcome. So I asked her a little bit of what she would like me to talk about. What she likes to watch when she watches a pregnancy video. Because let's be honest, every mom who has kids these days ends up watching some pregnancy videos, especially near the end. So she wanted to hear a bit about what I expected. How did it turn out? Was it what I expected? How is it different from what I expected? You know, just the general story and comparisons and things. So, I should start off by telling you about roughly how the first two went. And also why I haven't talked about the fact I was pregnant very much on any other of the videos. In fact, I don't think it's on any other videos. I'll start with that. The main reason I didn't mention that I was pregnant in any of my other videos was because, for the most part, I don't like walking around and going, "Hey guys, I'm pregnant. Watch me expand." I do have some body issues with my shape when I get pregnant. Partially due to being overweight for most of my life. I don't like anything that makes me look even more overweight. Even though it's, you know, a happy thing, I just don't like it. So it was my personal choice not to make a big deal of the fact I was pregnant again. But I did want to do a birth video for Hamilton. I wish I had done more for Rebecca and Mycroft. They have like lots of little clips and pictures, but not like an actual birth video. So this is my first one I've ever tried to do. So when Rebecca was born, she is obviously my first child that I had ever had. I did not know what contractions felt like necessarily, so I kept calling the hospital over what I now know are like tiny butterfly kick type contractions, and until eventually, you know, I went over my due date with her, and eventually they just said, you know what, do you want to come in and be induced? And by that point, Richard had stayed awake for more than 3 days straight with no sleep, and we were both mentally and physically exhausted trying to play the guessing game of when his birth was going to happen. So we said yes. So I went to the hospital and they induced me with Pitocin, and I was not prepared for the contractions to come on that hard and that fast. It did not take me very long to be screaming for an epidural. And then I found that while my pain was gone, I also had no idea what I was doing with my legs. They were telling me to push, and I didn't know what I was pushing. They kept telling me I was using the wrong muscles, and I still couldn't tell. So I just used all of them. I was just like, I'll just push everything in every direction, and eventually something will work. And yeah, Rebecca was born, and I had some tearing that they stitched up. I remember that the postpartum was pretty terrible for me. I was extremely sore, could barely walk. I had burning pain every time I peed, and I thought that was due to the stitches or something. It was altogether not anything how I had wanted, because with her I had been hoping for a normal, natural birth, with no painkillers or anything. So I got the exact opposite, and that was interesting. So with Mycroft, when Mycroft was born, we were in a different town again. And with him, I was able to... He was also super late. He was about one day before he was scheduled to be induced, because he was like 42 weeks over. Like, just on the edge of where they can't let you go any further for safety's sake. So with him, I got a membrane sweep, and that was enough to kickstart my labor. It started roughly at noon, and I think he was also born in the middle of the night, like Rebecca was. So it took me a long time. But in this case, we went to the hospital super early because, well, Richard was panicking like he does. He just tends to panic. So he got me there very early, much earlier than I probably should have been, because there wasn't enough contraction for me to really justify being there. But he wanted me in the hands of professionals. And once again, he fell asleep for most of the labor, so hours worth of labor. But for him, for Mycroft, I had most of my labor in a hot tub. I was not allowed to give birth in the hot tub, but I was able to have most of the labor in the hot tub, and that is probably some of the best pain relief I think I've ever felt in terms of non-medicated pain relief. And I was able to give birth to Mycroft without any pain relief at all. He was unmedicated birth. And that I liked better than the epidural, because I was able to tell what I was doing with my body. It took a few pushes, and I had, a very strong urge to bear down and push, and it happened fairly well, I think. That one went very well. But I did tear a lot. In that one, I did tear a lot. The person who was stitching me up, the doctor, told me to tell the next person I worked with, if I got pregnant again, that I had been turned into mincemeat. So that is a code word for very bad tearing. My postpartum with Mycroft, I think, must have been relatively the same, or I don't really remember it, to be honest. I think Rebecca kept me active and not thinking about how much I was cramping. It was much better than the first one, I'm pretty sure. So, Mycroft's birth went pretty much how I wanted it to. I finally got to experience what it felt like to go unmedicated, but I also had the hot tub to help dull the pain in the meantime. Now on to Hamilton's birth. Because I chose to use the oxytocin to help speed up labor, because I was determined not to go home due to COVID, even though I probably could have gone home and labored on my own for let's see, it took me 9 more hours after I got here. So I could have gone home for at least 6 of those hours. And labored on my own. But that would have meant getting my kids up at like, who knows what time in the morning. I think it was 4 o'clock in the morning when I made this decision. Getting the kids up again, dragging them out of bed, putting them in the car seats, driving all the way over here to get me up, and then driving everyone back, only to have to do the whole thing again later. And again, we're having this big old snowstorm today, so I would have had to travel in snow as well. So I made the call to stay in the hospital, and it seemed to me that I needed to help things speed up because I was petering out. There's like hardly any contractions. They weren't very strong. I would go through like a long time of no contractions at all, then I'd have a few, and then I'd go through another long time and they just weren't consistent. So I made that call, even though I remember not liking how it went with Rebecca's. I decided to go ahead and do that anyway. Not every pregnancy turns out the way you want it to, and not every labor. So in this case, I was expecting not to have to do that, and I end up choosing to do that for my own personal reasons of convenience, really. The convenience of my family. I didn't want them to have to go through all the trouble of coming to get me. So because I had the oxytocin, I was not allowed to use the hot tub, which was my main pain relief with Mycroft. So this time I went through an unmedicated birth. Unmedicated as in no pain medication. Obviously I had the oxytocin. But I went through that without the hot tub, and that was a lot more painful than I was expecting. I guess I kind of thought I had a handle on it based off of the other time, but the hot tub really does an excellent job of cutting down how much pain you're feeling. So without that, I felt like I had a good half hour, maybe 15 minutes to half an hour extra of more painful contractions. Most of my contractions were not very painful. You'll see me like motioning to my ears or something in one of the videos, or maybe a couple of the videos. I had on these headphones. Oh, there's a straw attached to them. There it is. These headphones. And I was listening to a hypnobirthing audiobook, and that helped a lot in the early labor, but in the heavier labor it got to the point where I couldn't focus on it anymore. It was just pretty much just breathe and groan and make noises, do whatever you have to do to get through the pain. And about the time you recovered, it started again. And that was about the time they called the doctor in, and he just barely sat down, really. Pulled out the little stirrup things for your feet to push against. I think he popped my water. I don't think it popped on its own. I partially say that because they asked if they could, and I said yes, though I don't think he told me right before he did it. I just felt that warm goosh, and then it was time to push. So Hamilton here, I keep trying to call him Mycroft. Hamilton here took about 2.5 pushes, not very long at all. Not even 5 minutes, I don't think. they just had me grab onto my own ankles and push. And they also used some vitamin E oil to, you know, keep things lubricated, because I told them I was worried about tearing. I didn't want to be mincemeat again. So they used some vitamin E oil, and luckily they said my cervix was extremely soft. In fact, the doctor said he couldn't even feel it when he checked right beforehand. So yeah, Mycroft came out, or not Mycroft, Hamilton. Hamilton came out in about 2.5 pushes. And then I had my new baby boy. You can tell how fast he came out because his head is extremely round. The longer you push, the more cone-shaped the head tends to be because of the squeezing. But he has very, very round head. So that was also different from what I was expecting. I was expecting to have more pushing time and less pain, and I ended up with more pain in general with the labor contractions beforehand, but extremely short pushing time. And then I only tore a little bit. He said just a couple stitches down the midline and not very much at all. So, oh, thank goodness for that. I'm very, very grateful for that. So that is kind of the birth story of all my kids in one go. If I had another child, what would I do? That was something else my friend asked me about. If I had another child, what would I do? What would I choose to do? And I would say I would try to go for another Mycroft-like birth with the hot tub, no Pitocin, and unmedicated. I liked how that one went a lot. I don't think I would choose to go through unmedicated with no hot tub again, like I did with Hamilton. It was painful. It was not a good experience. It wasn't traumatizing or anything like that for me, but it wasn't fun either. I mean, not that Mycroft's birth was fun versus Hamilton's, but I could handle it better because of the hot water. While due to the Pitocin, I wasn't allowed the hot tub. So next time, I would choose no Pitocin or no oxytocin. You know, no help with contractions, I guess, is what I would choose next time if I had a choice. Of course, again, that was a circumstantial thing this time, partially due to raging snowstorms outside. Is that even going to focus? You can't hardly see it. It's Richard says that they got about 8 inches today, and it's still going. So, yeah. Partially due to snowstorm and partially due to COVID. That was just the way this time happened to go. I chose to use something I didn't want to use, and it ended up altering how my birth was going to, or his birth went. Yeah, I think that's enough for this particular clip, because I'm starting to space off and not know what I'm talking about, which is one of my problems with recording videos, is I never really plan what I'm talking about, and I can't just space off and daze into the distance like I can do if I'm talking to a person directly in front of me who prompts me on with more questions. So I will try and record more details and such. Hi. That's okay. I was just literally wrapping up. So I can